So when you're using oil pastels and watercolor paint together, oil pastels are made out of oil and watercolor paint uses water to paint with. So oil and water actually don't mix. So it's really fun to use watercolors over oil pastels because you can still see the oil pastels. They're very bright and vibrant after you paint over them. So I'm just going to show you how we're going to do it. So once you've put your oil pastels onto your paper, we're gonna paint over it with the watercolor paint. So you have to wake up the watercolor paint with your water on your brush. So what I like to do is whatever color I'm using is just drop a little bit of water into those colors that I'm using, just to kind of wake them up. Wake up, wake up. And we're just gonna paint right over our oil pastel. So now I have my paint, I woke it up with the water, and we can paint on top of the oil pastel. So do you see how the oil pastel and watercolor do not mix together? I can still see my purple oil pastel even though I painted purple over it. And paint right over those as well. I'm gonna wash my brush and change colors to this blue. And paint right on top of the oil pastel. When you do this, the oil pastel is resisting the watercolor. So this is actually called a resist. Now, if your watercolor paint looks kind of scratchy and is not flowing very well on your paper, you just need to add more water. Dip your brush back in your paint, and then you will have that nice juicy paint flowing on your paper. So when you're using watercolor paint, you have to remember to wash your brush after each color. And the thing to remember about watercolor paint is that it's called watercolor paint. So you have to use water to make it work. This paint only works with water. So if you don't have water on your brush, you're not going to be able to use this paint. This paint is not the kind of paint that you scoop out. It's hard, and to use it, you have to add water. Do you see how I'm just gently tapping like this? Now I have that beautiful orange color on my brush, and I can add it to my paper. Okay? Every time I change colors, I have to wash my brush. When you go to get a new color, you have to wet your brush first. Okay? And just tap on top like this, tap, 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 and then you can use it on your paper. Okay? We don't want to jam our brush into our watercolor paint because that would actually mess up our paint here. So we want to be really nice to our paints. So when we go to get out the watercolor paint, you're just going to tap, 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 and then you can add it to your paper. Making a oil pastel and watercolor resist is really fun with white oil pastel because when you draw with your white oil pastel on your paper, you can't really see what's going on. But since it's an oil pastel, when you paint on top of it with the watercolor, It's like a secret message. I'm gonna paint right on top of that white oil pastel. And look at that. It's kind of like magic.